Here comes a new challenger.
The Last of Us is the first game this year to get a 10 from IGN. Has it dethroned last quarter's favorite, Bioshock Infinite?
Time to check in with Game of the Year Watch 2013. Welcome back, everybody. 7 games received a 9 or higher from IGN in the past 3 months. Monaco, the console version of Terraria, Guacamelee, indie PC game The Swapper, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, Animal Crossing New Leaf, and, of course, The Last of Us.
With us today to talk potential Game of the Year candidates are Colin Moriarty, who reviewed The Last of Us.
It's your boy Colin M.
And Mitch Dyer, whose heart is torn between the PS3's latest exclusive and Bioshock Infinite.
But before we get into it, we asked people around the IGN office what they think the best game of the year is so far.
My game of the year so far is Bioshock Infinite.
So far, it has to be Bioshock Infinite.
I think Irrational, much like they did with the original Bioshock, has created such an incredible, believable world with Columbia. It's something that could have been so ridiculous in the hands of a lesser developer, became this absolutely incredible place to visit.
Right now, I would go with Bioshock Infinite.
I remember multiple times during that game getting shivers going down my spine because of how evocative and provocative the imagery is. I haven't seen a game like that come around since the first Bioshock, and that's why it's got to be my game of the year.
Well, it's got to be, but.
My favorite game for this year so far is Tomb Raider. I really connected with the story. I mean, it's Lara. You can never go wrong with Lara.
I don't know if I know.
Honestly, it would have to be Ni no Kuni. You know, it's been so long since we've had a really true to form, old school, awesome JRPG, and that game delivered, man, on all fronts.
I have put in about 80 hours into Ni no Kuni and just couldn't get enough. Ghibli is my jam.
It's the one that has currently taken over my entire life and made me feel like I'm living a second little life away from my normal life is Animal Crossing New Leaf. That little bastard Nook keeps making me go further into debt. And here I am trying to put a bunch of stuff into this little digital house, and that stupid raccoon keeps wanting me to upgrade. And I'm spending all this money, and now I'm in debt, and I gotta go buy the turnips to sell the turnips, and I gotta go get the fruit and sell the fruit. Anyway, that's my game of the year so far.
Can I pick 2?
There's things about Animal Crossing that I love. I like the collecting aspects. I like just kind of grinding to get better stuff. But like, I just realized also that I have more fun doing that in Fire Emblem.
So far, my game of the year for this year is Fire Emblem Awakening.
Fire Emblem Awakening, because it's awesome.
The last.
My game of the year so far is State of Decay. Probably the best $20 I've spent this year.
In some ways, it's the zombie game you've always wanted to play because it's just about survival.
I don't know.
Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. The soundtrack, the aesthetics, the gameplay, it's all really, really excellent.
What if...
My game of the year thus far, and probably my game of this generation thus far, easily, is The Last of Us.
Hands down, right now, game of the year would be The Last of Us.
Easily so far, The Last of Us.
The Last of Us does it right. That's the first time where I've ever seen human performance and performance capture actively affect how I play a game.
What if we have the one in the
So, the people that have played it seem to agree that the game of the moment, the new darling, is The Last of Us. Colin, you gave it a 10. We know how you feel about it. Mitch, I know you like it, but you're also a big fan of Bioshock Infinite. So what do we think? Come December, will The Last of Us be on our short list for Game of the Year? Colin?
Greg and I were talking about this on Podcast Beyond, and it's really hard to imagine The Last of Us not winning Game of the Year because the game is really so much better than most of the other games on the market. What's really intriguing about it, to me, is that if we get a game better than this later in the year, then this is going to be a hell of a year for games because The Last of Us is very clearly a masterpiece. But what The Last of Us really does well is everything. It looks great, it runs great, it sounds great, it plays great, tells a really captivating story. The Last of Us is really a superior product, and that's the most intriguing part about it, I think.
Do you think the fact that it's so dark, Colin, that's going to work against it? I mean, it's going to turn people off to where they will be driven to, oh, well, Luigi's Mansion, Animal Crossing, these games were bright, they were colorful, they made me have a great time.
Maybe. I mean, we've talked about the analog between The Last of Us and Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which is a Pulitzer Prize winning book that's clearly an inspiration for The Last of Us and also extremely dark. And in fact, it gets darker and darker, just like The Last of Us does. And I think that's one of the intriguing parts about it because Naughty Dog really committed and stuck with this dark theme that transcends everything in the game, whether it's the characters or the environments and the story itself. So I think that's part of The Last of Us's charm, as weird as that is that it is dark and it is dire and it is serious. And it is human.
Mitch, Colin refers to The Last of Us as a masterpiece. Would you use that word to describe Bioshock Infinite?
Yeah, I absolutely would. I think Bioshock Infinite is one of the generation's best games. We have that game has so much to say, and as we distance ourselves from it, as we get months and months past Bioshock Infinite, we've had more time to think about what that game means and what it has to say, and how these characters interacted, and how that combat compares to other shooters, mechanisms. And I think it's just really interesting to see months later, wow, this really holds up. This isn't just some flash in the pan moment of wonder. This is something that we will remember for years.
So here's the thing about Bioshock Infinite is that I committed a lot of time to it and never beat it. I got really close to the end, and I know it really bothers Andrew Goldfarb that I never beat the game. The thing is that it's just not really as good as the original Bioshock. It doesn't do the same kind of thing that the original Bioshock does. I think the original Bioshock is easily one of the best games of this generation, a very immersive game, a very special game. And honestly, Bioshock Infinite is a fantastic example of creating a world and making you believe it, but at the same time, it really feels like a shooter. Mechanically, it just doesn't feel as good as the original Bioshock, in my opinion. I really think that when you're talking about game story and game character and acting and voice acting and graphics and even gameplay, to me, The Last of Us is better in every respect than Bioshock Infinite. And that really says something because I do think Infinite is a superior game. But I don't think it stacks up to The Last of Us at all.
You gotta beat it. That's what it comes down to. And I know that's such an out, right? That, I played this game and I kind of lost interest in it. And people are always like, well, the ending. The ending really matters here. And now, for me personally, in this discussion, that's why I put Last of Us ahead of it, is that I was invested in it the whole time, but to truly understand why people are so into Bioshock Infinite, I think you have to see those credits roll.
Yeah, but see, I think my enjoyment of Bioshock Infinite was sort of front-heavy.
Sure.
Even though, when I saw the credits roll, I felt a little unsatisfied, and I was having more fun. I just realized I was having more fun with the game in the first half of it.
Yeah.
If The Last of Us is a better overall package, I wonder if that will, have people voting for it instead of Bioshock Infinite.
But I also wonder, in my opinion, I guess what Greg is saying is true to us. I want to beat it. I want to actually get the platinum, so I do need to go back to it. But does it make the game suddenly more fun at the end? Does it become more than just another shooter? Because that's kind of the way Bioshock felt to me. It didn't feel like the original Bioshock, where it was more of a stealthy game. You weren't really using guns too much. It didn't seem to rely too much on its plasmids in the game. It just seemed a little more generic than I wanted it to be, which didn't jive really well with this beautiful world and these amazing characters that they created. So the game seemed unbalanced to me. It didn't make me want to finish it. I mean, I think that kind of says everything about it.
Mm-hmm. Colin's not alone in that conversation about combat not necessarily evolving from the first Bioshock, right? We have the plasmids, you have the guns, you have... the combat is very similar, aside from the skyhook. And I really did enjoy the combat, but I think something that really goes underappreciated with The Last of Us is its combat. It is similar to Uncharted, but it evolves it and moves it forward in a way that I find really interesting, because it focuses on that cover-based stealth, but not in a familiar way. You have to use the environment, you have to use your tools, you have to craft things, you have to do all these interesting things that create these really awesome emergent situations that could be totally unique to you, and that's not something you really get a lot, especially out of a survival horror / post-apocalyptic game.
But now, Damon, there is another game that many people at IGN, myself included, are obsessed with. It's called Animal Crossing New Leaf.
People won't shut up about it.
Yeah, people...
It makes people crazy.
Yes. No, that's the whole problem, is that Animal Crossing New Leaf is an addiction. That's what it is. It's not even so much a game as it is, well, I need to wake up and see what's going on. Did the tree grow incorrectly? Where are the weeds I need to pull out? Well, I can finally go donate these fossils. And then you start to bring in the idea of sharing and visiting other people's towns and getting their fruits and bringing them back and planting them, and what did you get? And it's gotten to the point where you can't talk to Andrew Goldfarb or Brian Altano and not have them bring up this. They ordered a little nerd book off the internet.
And it's not just people at IGN. My Twitter feed, my Facebook feed are just filled with people obsessed with Animal Crossing right now. So you think come the end of the year we'll be talking about Last of Us, Bioshock Infinite, maybe Tomb Raider. You think we'll be talking about Animal Crossing as well?
I think there's a shot at it. When you talk about Game of the Year and you talk about the games we're going to nominate or at least have a discussion about at the end of the year, it's the ones that have left an impact on gamers, right? Especially us. And right now you figure we've had Animal Crossing in the office for quite some time. And people still play it obsessively and go crazy for it. And every day, Brian Altano got back today from a trip, and the first thing Sam did is walk over and start talking about Animal Crossing and this, that, and the other, this thing he discovered. There's something there that I think is going to proliferate. Whatever, it'll keep going. And when you look back on this year, people are definitely going to say, well, that is a game that, touched me and did something to me.
What about Guacamelee? Colin, you reviewed that game.
Yeah, Guacamelee is amazing. Guacamelee is special. I mean, this is from Drinkbox Studios, and what's interesting about these guys is that we've watched them, and Greg knows, we've watched them evolve and become better and better. And Guacamelee really marries that old school Metroidvania kind of style with really smooth mechanics. It's a little short, which is disappointing because you really didn't want it to end. You can beat it in 5, 6, 7 hours. But that's a really special game, and it's really good on Vita, it's really good on PS3. You can kind of send your saves between the two. I think that game is going to be in the conversation, much like Journey and Unfinished Swan were in the conversation last year for Game of the Year. PlayStation Network's a pretty special place for specific games like this. So, yeah.
How does it stack up to something like The Last of Us? It seems like Guacamelee is an excellent traditional game, doing things that other games have done.
Right.
Whereas The Last of Us seems to be like a step forward for video games in general.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not sure what's going to really stack up to The Last of Us. I mean, if we're going to talk in this conversation about the 10 games, or we're kind of narrowing it down, we assume that games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and a few other games that come out later this year are going to be in the same conversation. Then, we're looking at a group of games where Guacamelee will probably fall to the wayside. But like I said in the last Game of the Year watch, we didn't probably expect that Journey was going to win Game of the Year last year, and it won overwhelmingly. So we can't count a game like Guacamelee out. But Guacamelee is not the only game that really doesn't stack up against The Last of Us.
Mitch, any final thoughts?
Guacamelee is really, really amazing. Personally, it's the same thing as Colin, right? I kind of lost interest toward the end. I felt like the game ran out of steam, despite the fact that it did an incredible job of marrying its platforming mechanics and its combat mechanics together in a really interesting way. So you have to use them together to navigate and to fight guys, which is really, really awesome, and it's an innovative thing that you don't really see a lot, especially in a traditional 2D exploration Metroidvania kind of game. But Last of Us and to a certain extent, Bioshock really, really stick with me. Those are games that I'm going to remember and want to play every year. And I don't know if Guacamelee is one of those games.
Ooh, harsh words from Mitch Dyer, the Raging Canadian Part 2. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Game of the Year Watch. We haven't decided anything. What do you think should be in the running for Game of the Year? Let us know in the comments. Then tweet at IGN, Game Over Greggy, Dame0. Let us know what we should be talking about.
Thanks a lot for joining us today. We'll check in again in 3 months. Should be very interesting because between now and then, we'll be getting games like Pikmin 3, Splinter Cell Blacklist, Saints Row 4, and of course, a little thing called Grand Theft Auto 5.
See you in 2,190 hours.